Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IraSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and we have a special guest today. Pete Sampson of The Athletic is joining the show. You know, Pete, normally I wear a hat, but I know that you're accustomed to podcasting with someone who is bald, without hair, and so I decided to be a good host and accommodate you that way, make you feel more comfortable. Not wearing a hat today. I'm embrace it for you today. Yeah. So we're going to have a very exciting show today. We're going to talk about Notre Dame's overall roster. We're going to talk about Pete's latest article that has come out in The Athletic titled "How Notre Dame Became a More Durable National Title Contender for College Football's New Era." It's about the buy-in from Notre Dame's administration on building their quest to build a national championship team, a national championship roster, national championship program, and that they've made great strides. And I think that's been evident to a lot of people over the last couple of years. But Pete did some really good reporting on that, talking to Pete Bevacqua and finding out exactly how invested Notre Dame is. We'll talk about the Notre Dame quarterback situation a little bit, and then we'll talk about Carr and his leadership traits and kind of the elite traits that he has shown as a passer, and then we'll get into some more football questions. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit that like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell, so whenever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below, and also links to Pete's article is also in the description below. You can check it out there on The Athletic. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang, and Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ's master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka, book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. Mr. Pete Sampson, thank you for coming on the show today. Notre Dame's gotten all the particulars out of the way for us. They made their quarterback decision. Next stop, South Beach. How are you feeling as Notre Dame kind of matriculates itself into the season?
I think, I'm weirdly more curious and interested and kind of excited about the season after the quarterback announcement. And I don't know if the way that it played out was part of that. But yeah, if Notre Dame could be more intriguing to me, they became more intriguing to me this week with how the quarterback situation went, sort of like from point A to point B back to point A. And how they got there is, that I think that might be one of the stories of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I was listening to you and Matt Fortuna on the Independent podcast talking about the decision that Notre Dame made. And I feel like I've followed your work for a long time, and I kind of have a sense for when news happens, how you might react to it. And there are things that usually get you a little bit squeamish. One of those things is Matt Campbell in a bowl game. Another one of those things is when there's kind of drama like this and uncertainty and whatever you want to say about it. It was touch and go there at quarterback for a little bit. And I was very surprised to hear on your show that at the end of the day, you didn't really care who the starting quarterback was going to be. You didn't change how you felt about the team. And that was something that I wanted to kind of drill down because I didn't expect that reaction from you. I'm kind of curious as to why you've kind of come to that conclusion. And what about this roster that you kind of made that choice?
So I think that to me, it says less about the quarterback and more about the other, 21 guys that's in defense that are out there. And, obviously it goes deeper than that. Like I think this roster is fantastic. The depth is outstanding. They really don't, you really have to squint to see holes in it. Do they have a high enough end defensive tackle tandem? Maybe not. But man, the secondary, the linebacker group, the defensive ends, I think the receivers are way up. The running backs sort of speak for themselves. It's, you lose Charles Jagasaw, you're probably going to stick in Gerby Lambert. I don't know. I just sort of look at this roster and think if you have a good staff, and I think Notre Dame has more than a good staff, you should go 10-2 no matter who the quarterback is at minimum.
Yeah.
And there's a chance to go higher than that. I think like an addendum to what I probably said there that I could have explained better. Like, I don't think it changes how I feel about the regular season.
Yeah.
CJ Carr makes me feel different about the potential of the postseason, and that's a sort of a different category of the season
because of the upside piece that
and the
we've
growth
kind of
over
alluded
12
to.
games there, I think, has a chance to be really significant, and like then maybe you've got sort of like the complete package happening there if CJ can kind of grow into that role over the next 3 months.
Okay. Well, we were going to get to this later, but we can kind of start in that now because I think that to me is the interesting part. Is I feel like it's pretty easy to see that that's where Notre Dame went with this. And I mean, a lot of it is Notre Dame has to. It's not because it's not just a micro thing with going into game 1, game 2, or whatever. Notre Dame wants to develop one of these two players for the next 2 years, right? Like this is a long-term play for them. And they probably have the same calculus that you do, is that it doesn't really change for us what we think the season can be, but to go on and go into the national title game or the national, the playoff or whatever, to get to the national title game. They were in the title game last year. They probably want a little bit more out of the quarterback position, which isn't to say that Kenny Minchie isn't that. But I think CJ Carr over the last 18 months, I mean, I've heard a lot of things about him and his ability to throw, the types of throws that he's making. And I've kind of thought about it a little bit like, and you can kind of correct me if I'm off base here. I kind of felt like if in practice Jeremiah Love kept fumbling as a young player, and it's like, we'd really love you to stop fumbling, but like all the stuff that you keep doing, like in between that, is like really wow and exciting. I feel like that's where Notre Dame is with this. And I mean, obviously Notre Dame fans are pretty excited for Notre Dame to bet on the upside of their star quarterback. Do you feel like that's kind of an apt comparison a little bit?
I think so. It's different in the sense of like you can game plan around CJ Carr not throwing the ball a lot, and still be really good with that because of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and kind of the way that the team is put together. But yeah, it's upside is probably the bet here. And I go back to spring practice. I thought, obviously really wrong about it, but like I thought they might lean towards like Angeli in week 1 because they're just like, all right, you kind of know what you're doing. This isn't an upside play. It's just like, hey, how do we get out of Miami 1-0? Like, who gives us the best chance to beat Miami? Obviously, it didn't work out that way. But I think that Marcus has shown a little bit. I think last year, going with Anthony Knapp, going with Sam Pendleton, I forget about Adon Schuler. I just feel like he's been a starter forever, but he did beat out Rod Hurd for that job, who was older. And I think also it's like worth remembering, like they bet on the upside of Sam Pendleton. It didn't work out. They pulled the plug on it. They went in a different direction because it gave them a better chance to win. It's not, you want to be married to this quarterback decision for a long time, but the staff has shown that they're not afraid to sort of pivot if they have to as well. But yeah, I agree. It's like you look at Carr and what he can be. It's the whole thing. It's sort of the quarterback, the prince who's been promised. Like, this is the guy you've been waiting on for a long, long time. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, and especially when they're both an unknown.
Right.
It's not like Kenny Minchie has the kind of the experience that Steve Angeli did. You don't really know with either of them. That was probably another big part that played in this. I'll say this: Marcus Freeman. For all the Jim Tressel comparisons, I feel like that's always been a thing. He is a risk taker. I mean, he will. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to like fake punts, even like going for it on 4th down and things like that, like he has. I feel like he's taken the mindset of Jim Tressel in terms of how he wants to play, but the way he manages his team is very much not that way, which I think, people like he's very aggressive. Like people want to be going for it. Let's talk about what you reported on, speaking of the roster and how good it is and how kind of healthy the program is right now. Let's talk about what you reported and you wrote about in The Athletic today. For me personally, I was like, these are the types of things that really get me feeling like Notre Dame is in a good spot right, and is ready to be durable, because we've seen it before, and you reference it. Like there's the 2012 season where 2013 wasn't as good, the 2018 season where 2019 wasn't as good, right? Like they're sitting with 2 losses in the middle of October. After 2021, the 2022 season when it's good. Like we've seen moments where it's like Notre Dame is going to take that next step and they can't. And you're talking in this about why they are more durable as a year over year kind of national contender. Just going to go into like A, how this came about, and B, what your main takeaways were from it.
So I think that, when last season ended, anytime a team makes the title game or the Super Bowl, you're like, okay, how do they get back? So it's like kind of a duh storyline. But I do think like when I, living in South Bend for as long as I have and getting to know whether that be like people administration, the academic side, admissions, certainly obviously the football office, trustees, what have you. The vibe I always got was like Notre Dame is as all in with football now as any point that since I've been covering the team going back to Bob Davies last year. And it's like, okay, that's a vibe, but like a vibe isn't a story. So I kind of wanted to report it out and be like, okay, what made this vibe happen? And so I talked to probably a dozen people for it, mostly on background. But yeah, I asked all of them, do you think like the sentiment that I always think is important is like, does Notre Dame understand when Notre Dame football wins, we all win? Like, is that a campus sentiment or not? And everyone is like, yeah, that's how it feels now. It has not always felt that way. I think one of the other things that I didn't really state this in the story, but every person I talked to about Bevacqua would answer with, I really appreciated what Jack Swarbrick did, but. And then they would go into this like really raving about Bevacqua as kind of forward-thinking, aggressive, hands-on. I mean, he's a fan. Like I think he, in his former life, he posted on message boards at some point. Like it's that sort of mentality, I think, has really gotten to let's give Notre Dame football every chance we can give Notre Dame football to win while still being Notre Dame. And I think they've pushed the boundaries there. And it's not only just like pushing the boundaries, it's the fact that you have a head coach that people want to go to bat for. Like if you're the dean of the business school or you're the provost or you're a trustee, like Marcus Freeman is somebody you want to have their back. And that clearly is also, something that's different from where we were 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Do you think this could have happened with Bevacqua if Jack Swarbrick hadn't come first? Like I feel like, and I almost feel like this with Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly as well. Like I think Marcus Freeman had to follow Brian Kelly in order for him to become what he has become. Mm-hmm. And I think Pete Bevacqua needed to come after Jack Swarbrick because Swarbrick needed to do those little things to set them up to get to this point. Like that's listening to you say that. I feel like they had to have those building blocks first before they could put the other building blocks on it. Do you think that's a fair kind of takeaway?
I do. I think that, Marcus and Bevacqua together feel much more like finishing moves. And I think that's one thing, I realize Notre Dame fans have their opinions about Brian Kelly, and I'm not going to try to argue them. But I do. If I was a Notre Dame fan, I would be like, you know what, Brian Kelly, thank you. One, you left when you did. Yeah. So we could take it. But more importantly, you built the program in a position where like we could take a chance on a first-time head coach, which for the entire history of Notre Dame football has been like a losing bet. But it's turning into a winning bet, I think, because of the groundwork that is laid by Swarbrick and Kelly. And now, they've been replaced by guys who I think, we can look at and say like, these are the guys who can take it. If there's a next level out there, if Notre Dame's going to do it, this is the kind of head coach AD combination that's going to get Notre Dame over the final line. Yeah.
And by the way, Swarbrick, I mean, the hire that he made in Marcus Freeman, I mean, it was pretty gutsy at the time. Yeah. And the question I wanted to ask you is, and I don't know if you can answer this or how, like, because you're kind of speaking for Swarbrick, but I know you've talked to him a bunch. Mm-hmm. And I know that you did a lot of reporting on the Marcus Freeman hire at the time. And it's interesting. It ended up being a very good bet. But I think there are things about Marcus Freeman that Jack Swarbrick couldn't have known that he was good at. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what do you think is most surprising to Swarbrick that Marcus Freeman is good at that maybe he couldn't have known at the time? Like, do you have any insight into that?
I think that probably the ability to fill out your staff as well as he has was a really big unknown. Like I get it, the game day stuff was all an unknown, and I think for the first couple of years there were a bunch of like, whoa, what's happening here? But
yeah,
I think the ability to like correct problems with your staff or fill gaps in your staff quickly has been impressive to me. I'm not sure Swarbrick could have predicted that because it's like, I think early days for Marcus Freeman, he's relying on outside counsel. Who should I hire? What kind of coach do I need? I think he quickly, within maybe 2.5 years, he figured out, no, I know what kind of coaches we need. I know the kind of like people we need to bring into our building. And he's done a really nice job of that. The recruiting aspect of it, I think we all kind of knew that had the potential to blow up the way that it has. I think his emotional intelligence, that was something that was pretty obvious on the day he was hired, even before then. But yeah, I would say like staff management. And I think staff management has turned into game day management with analytics and having the right people around him. So that's the part I think that like Swarbrick was hoping that he would figure it out quickly, but you just never really know if he will.
Was, in your experience, was Marcus Freeman always as self-aware as he is? I feel like he is the most self-aware head coach Notre Dame has had in my, time following the team. And this goes back to Holtz. Right now, I was younger. I didn't really. I don't know how self-aware Holtz was. To be honest, I don't know if that was a thing. But like from Davey to Willingham to Weiss to Brian Kelly, like I feel like Marcus Freeman is very aware of who he is and how he needs to complement the way that he is and the type of person he is, the type of coach that he is with the coaches that are around him. And he'll make those changes in real time, even if they're difficult, and that to me is something that I wonder if that was kind of always apparent to you, is even in press conferences, the answers that he would give. And I think I've heard probably you and a lot of press members during, the Marcus Freeman tenure, it's like, man, that's pretty honest in a press conference, like maybe a little bit too much so, but I feel like his self-awareness is like, there has been moments where it's like, maybe you could rein that in a bit, but I think it is one of his biggest strengths.
I think he's grown into that. Because I think early on, I mean, you mentioned the press conferences. I'll be honest, there were a lot of times you would go to them and be like, what was he talking about? Like the answers would just like kind of go around the question and you're just like, what? But I think now I think he knows how to say something real that feels like I'm backing my player, but I'm also like engaging in the question here. Like I'm giving you an honest answer. And that's, I think he's grown into like kind of being comfortable with that part of being a head coach. In May, I had a one-on-one with him where I watched film, and it was awesome because he was just like it was more of like shooting from the hip, Marcus. He wasn't afraid to like light into a player to me as if they were in the room because he'd already lit into that player in the film room. And that was awesome to hear. Because certainly as your head coach in press conferences, I think you try to add a little more polish to the whole thing. But I think the self-awareness is important. I also think like the emotional intelligence is important. I think he knows who he is as a head coach now too. That was really one of the big changes I thought in year 3 for him, is just like, this guy knows what buttons to push and what levers to pull in a way that he was pushing buttons and pulling levers in year 1 and year 2, but just wasn't sure if they were the right ones. And I think that sort of self-confidence really showed last year, where he's just like, yeah, I'm the head coach at Notre Dame. I'm comfortable in my own skin. Like, and we're going to go out and run this like fake punt, non-fake punt against Georgia at the end of the Sugar Bowl and win the game.
Yeah. I think that is what you just said is the thing that Swarbrick, if we were to ask him, like, I think that he would be most pleasantly surprised by, just because it's very hard, especially
the job can eat you alive. I mean, I've seen it with other coaches.
Right. And I think that, the first year, losing to Ohio State, then losing to Marshall, and they're 0-2, and then your quarterback gets hurt.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, like he was 0-3 if you count the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
And the Cal game comes down to a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Like that was a weird time, and like to be able to come out the other side of that, I think incredibly impressive, because that would have destroyed a lot of first-time head coaches, regardless of how the rest of the season went. You don't. Yeah. It's like the starting pitcher that gets trotted out there too young and gets shelled and just is never the same.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the mistakes against Ohio State after that, where you don't have enough players on the field at the toughest moments, right? Like it's little things but his ability to rally them and then to push the right buttons, like you said, that's very difficult. Every coach has an idea, or every person has an idea of like, this is how the button I'm going to push and it's going to work. Like you don't know that it will work. I mean, because it's a huge program. Like you have to, every time you talk to these players, like you have to feel the weight of it. And the fact that even after NIU last year, where he went all in on, I am not going to dismiss this. We are going to show this to the team every single week. We are going to talk about our failure against NIU. And I know this is the right button to push. And it was. I think that is the part that no one could have seen coming. Because I think that if Jack Swarbrick knew the first year is going to be 8-5 and then it's going to be 10-3 or whatever it was, he might have thought, I don't know, like, because you don't know that the third year is going to work out that way. Marcus Freeman has kind of really grown into it, and like you said, like he just grew into it in a way that was obviously worked out greatly to Notre Dame's benefit. I want to talk about the top of the administration's role in this too, because you make a point in the piece to mention, like, there was a time when the president of the university, John Jenkins, said that if Notre Dame was involved in pay for play, they would opt out of college football altogether. That is not what happened. They've gone the other direction. But how much of a kind of a change, not just with Swarbrick, but also with the president of the university? I don't want to. I'm not trying to disparage John Jenkins or anything like that, but just kind of the overall change at the top has led kind of Notre Dame to this moment.
I think that there was a movement even above Swarbrick and Jenkins, like at the trustee level, that was like, no. Like, we're going for this. And like, we can figure out to do it like in a Notre Dame way. But there were some very powerful people around Notre Dame that basically got the ball rolling on this above the administration. I don't know if we're where we are with Notre Dame football and the big picture and all that, if that doesn't happen, if there isn't sort of this movement from, the top of the top around this university. Because I mean, I asked Bevacqua about like the Jenkins story from 2015 as well, and he kind of didn't really want to answer it, and I understand that. But like, Swarbrick is, doesn't have skin in the game anymore, so I thought his answer was fine. It's like, look, you want to advocate for the world you want college athletics to be, but we were never going to let Notre Dame get left behind. And I'm just like, yeah, the cranes around the stadium at the same time this New York Times piece comes out were a pretty obvious tell that like you were going to go all in some way. But I do think like the trustee angle of that and getting Notre Dame moving in this good direction, I think is really significant.
What sense do you have of what the catalyst was for that, and how much of it was just Marcus Freeman and the fact that, they finally had someone where it's like, oh, he's fully invested in what Notre Dame is. I mean, that was clear from the very beginning. He was fully invested. No, he was not like an excuse maker. It was like, I will do everything that I can to get Notre Dame to the top. And I think he spoke it, right? And not just he spoke it, but also his actions. I mean, it's little things. Like, I'm going to wake up at 5 and work out kind of thing so that I can represent this university the way that I want. How much of Marcus Freeman did he pay in that? Because, like, what was the harbinger for that? Like, what was the impetus for the sea change in the way that the top people said, we're going to go into this?
I think it predated Marcus, honestly. I think that they saw where the sport was going. Notre Dame's knocking on the door with Brian Kelly not getting through. It was difficult to raise the money for the indoor practice facility. And then you have Goog 2.0 coming on with Shields Hall. I think they're much more, willing to raise money and lead with athletics. I think that was one thing when you talk to donors, like Bevacqua will lead with athletics, or like their discussions with development will lead with athletics in a way that, maybe they didn't 10, 15 years ago. So I think this wheel started to turn, while Marcus Freeman was at Cincinnati. He has been a huge part of like picking up the speed of it. But I do think the wheel was turning to get Notre Dame to where we are right now before Marcus Freeman was here. But he's certainly been the one to like kind of kick that on, and like the velocity has ramped up considerably since.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I guess I don't know how to ask this question with Marcus. I just feel like his personality kicks it forward even more so. And just the fact that he's always willing to push the limits. Like even the hiring, like this is a good example before of like the hiring that you talked about, like the Mike Martin hire as the GM, and the way that he set up the recruiting operation. Like that was one where he had lost Chad Bowden, and he had it could have gone in any direction. Yeah. It like that was a really big hire for them. The recruiting operation at the time was, I don't want to say it was bad, but it was in very much stalled. It was neutral. Like they didn't have a lot of traction with top recruits. Like we knew the names of the players, but like they had no visits lined up. They had nothing going. He installs Mike Martin, and he gets the recruiting operation set up. And then from there, they go full speed ahead. Like even that, like the ability for him to adapt to like, I know where college football is going. I'm going to bring in a guy from the NFL, and this is how we're going to run our program. Like those types of things from Marcus, I feel like are as much the catalyst for growth as kind of anything else.
Yeah, I think he's done a good job of sort of seeing what's next and adapting. I think that they would have made a change in the recruiting department regardless, but Chad's departure for USC kind of opened the door for that to happen now. And I think he saw like, look, we don't need like a big personality dressed in a leprechaun suit to like lead the recruiting. We need somebody who knows how to negotiate a contract with Jeremiah Love. Like that's what we need now. Yeah. And I do think they've done a much better job. Some of this is Mike Martin. I think a lot of this is Marcus Freeman growing into Notre Dame. A lot of it's Carter Allman, who obviously has gone here too. Like, yeah, how like this is the first class in how long where we're not looking at Keon Keeley, Deuce Knight, Peyton Bowen. Like, when's that guy going to decommit? There's no when's that guy going to decommit in this class. And I think that speaks to the kinds of kids that they've gone after and the kinds of kids they've stayed away from too. Like they've been able to say to resist the temptation to go after maybe a certain elite athlete here or there that would look great in a uniform, but maybe it's not going to look great on your campus for 3 or 4 years. So I think all that fits together, in terms of, but it starts with the head coach understanding, hey, here's what the program needs now. Here's what it needs in the future. And what kind of like what got us here isn't going to get us where we want to go kind of thing. That's, I think Marcus has done a really good job of like riding that wave. Yeah.
I mean, another example of him, being able to adapt and to, then thrive. Listen, sometimes you got to adapt to how you're going to keep fit, Pete. And, you get older and you can't do the things you normally do. You got to be a little bit easier, but you want to stay active. And if you're in the Mishawaka area, you can do that with H2 Pickleball. Founded by alum Todd Hill, he's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howells, who's a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans to Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. The first event will be a tournament before the Purdue game with medal rounds played on campus. A portion of the proceeds will go to the Rockne Athletics Fund to support Notre Dame's student athletes. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or 574-339-5195 to join the league. And be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana. let's talk some. Notre Dame made a quarterback decision. I don't know if you heard that, Pete. What a surprise! What? Oh man, I tell you, it's funny, being on the beat now and kind of hearing about how things are going. I do want to. You do have some insight because you've talked a lot about this, about the leadership of CJ Carr and kind of how that has shown itself over the offseason. And I think this is something that's brought up, but it's not really, made specific. How has he kind of shown that in your, through your reporting and everything? And how has that kind of shown itself within the football team?
I mean, I think you saw this pretty early on when he got here, kind of trying to be essentially like captain of the freshman class. His first summer, that's like, okay, it's significant. I remember talking to, Tommy Reese about Carr on the way out. And he's just like, look, this guy is a football nerd. Like he lives and, sleeps football. That's what it takes. So that I think shows off. And this is not to say that like Kenny Minchie doesn't have some of these things. But I think it's the difference between like Will Pauling and Jaden Greathouse. One is a really good player. The other one's sleeping in the goog. That's not for everybody. And that's okay. But I think Carr his leadership is more like Will Pauling sleeping in the goog levels of dedication. And I think that has shown, and like they're gonna need that to move forward, because it's if this was as 50-50 as everyone says, or 51-49, that means there's a lot of people that thought Minchie was like the guy or could have been the guy. So like how you react to that and like bring everything back together is, I think that's part of being a good leader. That's going to be part of CJ Carr's job moving forward, along with, Denbrock and Marcus Freeman.
There's the adage, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Sometimes adages work out, sometimes they don't. I'm wondering how this kind of compare, like each play, like, so like, let's say CJ Carr, because I put in the notes like how it kind of compares to other competitions that you've kind of covered. Because I remember in 2015 when it was Malik, and this wasn't a competition, but he was like a new quarterback. He had played a little bit, but it's like he's the starter now. And I remember in that offseason, in the preseason camp, it was like, if it's third and whatever, then I don't know how this is going to go. Like maybe just run quarterback draw and punt and we'll get out of here kind of thing. Because there was accuracy problems. There was decision-making problems. Like the word of it. And then he comes out against Texas and is 19 of 22 and has maybe like the greatest opener since like Johnny Lujack or Terry Hanratty or something. But like, how does it compare to that? I feel like there's been so much comparison between the two quarterbacks that we don't have a great context of how good one of them is in terms of like previous seasons or anything like that. Because I did hear like both of them are further along as passers than Riley Leonard was last year. Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of a good baseline to kind of talk about this, have this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a position of strength despite being a position of inexperience. Like this isn't, all due respect to these guys, but this isn't Buckner and Pine from 2022, where you're just like, do you have one?
Yeah.
And you really kind of didn't. I think they have two quarterbacks that they can win with. Is it like, you're trying to think back of like most of the quarterback competitions are not as similar as this one was. Like Zaire Kaiser that one was a mess for multiple reasons. Go back to Reese Golson. Those are not like for like, you're not swapping one guy out for the other. Mm-hmm. Even like Chris Reese was different. So I don't know if this quarterback competition really is like any of the other ones, that I've covered. Because like even going back to like 2007, that was a disaster for a bunch of different reasons. But like they did bet on the highest upside guy in the end. He wasn't ready to play, and the roster around him was not good. But You think back to that one where it's like, I guess, I don't know who plays the role of Kenny Minchie in the Jimmy Clausen, Demetrius Jones, Evan Sharpley, Zach Frazier world, but like, I just think that's why, we talked about this top of the show, like whoever won this is going to do a good job because of everything around him. A lot of these previous competitions, those rosters had so many more holes than this one did. So it's kind of hard for me to look at them and be like, this one reminds me of that one, from 10 years ago. Cause I don't think there is like a really great parallel between this one and those others.
Yeah. It's the only, and the thing is the only other time, cause full of transparency, like there was a lot of talk that Kenny Minchie had performed better in camp. And the only other time that's happened is 18 with Book and Wimbush. The difference then was Wimbush was like not hitting the net, like that sort of thing. Yes. Like there was videos, like he couldn't throw the swing route. And I was messaging with you earlier when we were setting this up. Like the one thing we haven't heard from either of them is they're inaccurate.
True.
Accuracy has never been a question with them. And, like I go back and I watch the spring games a lot. And, I thought Minchie showed more in the spring game, frankly, very famously. People were very mad at me for that. Which isn't, it wasn't an endorsement of anything. It was just an observation. But like CJ Carr's doing a lot in that game, right? He's showing a lot. He's throwing the ball. And the thing you take for granted is the accuracy piece, which we didn't have with the Book Wimbush thing. And I think that makes it completely different. So that's why, to me, I've kind of settled on like they just wanted to develop. They had to choose one, and they're backing CJ Carr, who I think they've kind of felt like, man, this kid's got something special, for a long time. And sometimes it's just there, and you want to try to tap into it. If you could talk about what you've heard on that front, just like because you told me before, his ceiling and his talent is immense. Yeah. I think that's the part where people are like, they are very excited about what he could be.
I think that was so I think back to like, we saw him in 4 open practices before camp started. 2 spring games and 2 Jersey scrimmages. I thought he was the best quarterback in 3 of those, and it was maybe a toss-up in the 4th. So what you had seen in those, you're like, all right, this is going to happen. Like I had never seen a freshman quarterback look that good in a practice before. Mm-hmm. And then you go out and you watch the 3 picks, and it just felt like a record scratch walking out of practice. You're like, what was that? Like, okay, you kind of dismiss it. And then you kind of hear a little bit more stuff about like, the picks have continued. This wasn't just kind of a one-time thing. And it was like, then you're sort of thinking about like, all right, this is, some ballyhooed quarterbacks who don't work out. Notre Dame's had a bunch of those. Is this going to be one of those? And then I'm curious, like what you or Jamie would think about this. Like, as I moved back away from it and thought like, all right, well, how is camp structured? Because like, wasn't camp structured to really push the envelope with these quarterbacks? Because you needed to know, if you're a coach, like, can they handle it? So we're going to try to like break them maybe a couple times and see if they come back from it. And also, like, at what part of camp are they turning around and handing the ball off to Jeremiah Love to see if he's any good? They're not doing that at all. So it just, I don't know. It felt like camp was set up maybe for them to throw a lot of picks, not by design, but because they really needed to know like what doesn't work. Because we got to know what works, but we also got to know what we got to throw out. And so maybe the process of learning what you throw out was kind of what was popping up in players' parents or people at practice, and are like, hey, Minchie's better. Yeah. Well, that's because maybe Carr's working on the stuff that they're going to throw out. I don't know. That may be kind of a wishful way to look at it, but I started thinking about that a lot more in, middle of this week.
Yeah. Like we made that exact point, and you made the point with Matt on your show afterwards, as I was telling you, like the news broke literally while we were recording, which was tough to process.
Usually you get it like right after. So
yeah. I mean, it was good. Like it was good. I'm not upset about it, but it was hard to process in the moment.
And wasn't it weird that like you're shocked about something you thought was going to happen all along?
Yeah. Yeah, first definitely, especially going in. I think they do structure it, and I think Marcus kind of alluded to this. Is like they made it intentionally difficult. And I think the hard part is, and this is where it gets difficult to extrapolate because you're not there.
Right.
Right. And so like we would all love to be there. It's so much easier for me to form a firm take if I can just watch it. But they make it intentionally hard. And the good thing is that Mike Denbrock knows like these are the situations where CJ got himself into trouble. So we can now put in a game plan where keep him out of that. Right. Yeah. Like that happens all the time. That happens all the time in camp. Like I am. So that's why I am of the sense that like the picks and all that stuff, like they can avoid putting him in those positions. They can. And I likened it to kind of like what Notre Dame did with Everett Golson in 12, where it's like, hey, you made a great point about Jeremiah Love. Like all this talk about the defense is dominating the offense. Well, yeah, they're not giving the ball to Jeremiah Love 20 times. Yeah. They're not giving the ball to Jadarian Price. Like they better. This is Notre Dame's best player. He might be the best player in the nation, you know? So, you know, what Notre Dame did and how they structured practice is not how they're going to game plan against Miami. So there is a difference there. The only thing is, like you said, wishful thinking. It's hard because we weren't there. So we can't know. But Mike Denbrock, this is his not first time. Mike Denbrock was on staff in 2012 when they planned for, you know, Everett Golson. He's been around for a long time. He knows how to put on a game. He was there in 2015, speaking of Malik Zaire, when they put in a game plan where he was 19 of 22. You know, he knows how to do this. I think the fact of the matter is Notre Dame has two quarterbacks who they believe can throw the football. And they very much believe in CJ Carr's ability to throw the football. They just need to get him into the situations where it's like, hey, I think there's going to be a lot of predetermined reads. I think there's going to be a lot of like half field reads. Yes. And, you know, we're going to run the ball with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price at all. Right. There's a lot of weapons around him. And, you know, when we talked about it, Jamie said this is closer to 2015 in terms of the types of weapons and offense that Notre Dame had vis-a-vis 2012. Speaking of that, well, first of all, Chris Schreiber with a question in here. If Carr gives you a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio this season, such as 30-10, is that a successful season? It's a very easy answer for me. What do you think about that, Pete?
I guess it depends on where the 10 were, but like over like if you zoomed out, I would say, yeah, the 3-to-1 for a first time starting quarterback would be pretty good.
Yeah, that's I think Notre Dame is in a very, very good position if that's the deal, because touchdowns are touchdowns. I mean, hopefully, like you said, the 10. I mean, it could be 30-6, but if those 6 come right, you know, at the wrong time, generally speaking, if CJ Carr throws 30 touchdowns this year, I'm going to be very, very excited for Notre Dame's offensive prospects. I think that's good. This is from Brendan, probably Brendan McElinden from 1 Foot Down. Pete, after seeing Ned, this might be an inside thing for you guys. Zed Necropolis unable to crack the first string at Mountain College as a freshman. Is there a freshman on Notre Dame's roster that might not see the field this year, but you are excited for?
I don't know what the first clause of that question was, Brendan. I would say like freshmen who might not play, but I'm interested to see. Man, because I mean, earlier I would have said Nolan James, but I don't think that's going to be the case anymore.
Especially if Aeneas Williams is banged up.
Yeah. I think there was maybe a world at some point where maybe both of the freshman corners didn't play. Maybe one did, but I think they both will play. But I guess, like, I don't know, does Madden Framo count for this? Because
yeah, 100%.
I think he's going to be really good. I also have no idea how there are any reps available for him this year in like non-blowout settings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think that the 4 linebackers they have are so good and so like above what a true freshman like. I like Madden Framo. He's not Kingston Viliamasa in terms of like diagnostic, you know, understanding of football. So That would probably be the one. Obviously the offensive lineman. There's a lot there. Who knows when it will show? But I think for Amo would probably be the guy who'd be like, in a lot of years he would play. I'm not sure this is a lot of years.
Yeah. I think Will Black, like you said, on the offensive line. I mean, once you start talking about like, hey, we're giving him 2 reps, we're trying to fit him in somewhere to get him kind of ready to go. That's a great sign, especially on the offensive line. Like that's what you want to hear from those guys. A little bit of, how much is Elijah Burris going to play? That's kind of hard.
Like how many freshman receivers have had like good moments in camp? Like every year there's one, and then you're like, what happened to him?
Yeah.
We'll ask about him in spring practice.
But it definitely portends well to next year.
Yeah.
Like if this was the 23 season, when it was like Tobias. Yeah, he probably
started at Duke.
Yeah, for 100%. Yes. Between him and Rico Flores, like I feel like he's definitely playing. That definitely would have been a thing. All right. What non-quarterback position group or player intrigues you the most entering the season? So we're taking quarterbacks out of this. Like, what is the position group? Either you're monitoring from a, on the negative aspect, or just like you feel like someone or some group is kind of flying under the radar.
I don't think they're flying under the radar, but like I'm really interested to sort of see how Chris Ash uses the defensive ends available to him. Because they don't always need to be lined up at defensive end. Like I want to see a healthy Botello on the field with Traore and Bryce Young. Like I want to see what that looks like on 3rd and 8. So that's because I think that position group is incredibly talented and just absurdly deep. I mean, you mentioned like guys that would play on I mentioned guys that play like Logan Thomas probably would have started on a lot of Notre Dame teams that I've covered.
Yeah.
I mean, there are no reps for him. They're like that position is that good. So, defensive end, and then I guess maybe this is like somewhat of a cop out, but like how much 2-back stuff do they use with Love and Price? Like I think it's got a chance to be a real pain in the butt to deal with. But if they do it more than 5% of the time, that would be a big number. But I'm curious to see if like, hey, look, who are our best 5 skill position players at any one time on offense? How do we get those guys out there together? That may be Price and Love together.
Yeah. I think it's not a cop out at all, because it's very like that has, speaking of upside and ceiling, like that has such high upside if you hit it right. And I felt like Penn State did a very good job last year of maximizing those 2 players, Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. And
that's one of the schools that I think only Texas did it more, I think, among high-end Power 5 teams.
Yeah. I heard first of all, I heard your numbers on this and I was shocked at how little the top teams were.
Yeah, I was too.
It's like, what was it, like 15% or something?
Yeah, and that's like Army and Navy. So it's
yeah. It's like you have to like eliminate them because they're in like 12-back stuff. It's not a huge part of it's not a huge part of offenses right now. And Texas does a great job with it. I mean, Steve Sarkisian is very good. There was a comment in here about the O-line from Juan Manuel. I'll say 5. I'll take that as a Roman numeral. How has O-line improved pass protection wise with CJ Carr being less mobile than Riley Leonard? What are your thoughts on this? I talked about this yesterday, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I may have heard that part of your show, but like I went back and looked at just sort of like the pressure percentage allowed on dropbacks for just the 12 CFB teams. I didn't really care what happened to Purdue.
Yeah,
but Notre Dame was 11th in pressures allowed, but I think they were like 3rd or 4th in sacks allowed. I would put that down to Riley Leonard running away from stuff.
For sure, yeah.
Could Riley Leonard also run into some pressures? That also might be true. So I think the line, I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like the line has to take a bigger jump than just year 1 to year 2. You know what I mean? Like it's got, and it can, like I think the upside for that group is immense, but
yeah,
I think just being a little bit better than last year is not enough. I think the line can and should and probably will take a big jump this year. But I think they need to take that jump if Notre Dame's going to do, get onto the kind of run that it did last season.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and it's an X factor to me, is the loss of Riley Leonard as a sack avoider. Like, where does that kind of show itself? Is the line able to improve enough to mitigate that superpower that Riley Leonard had last year? Because it was a superpower. And frankly, it enabled them to do the things that they did against Texas A&M in the opener, which, that's completely fair, right? Like, everyone was new starting, right?
Yeah.
Anthony Knapp is like 280 pounds going against Nick Scorton, right? That's very hard. He had to be that good. But like, even against Georgia, even against Penn State, right? Like, that ability to avoid sacks was it enabled so much in that offense. The other part too, and I talked about it, is like the loss of X Watts. How does that show itself, and in what way, and to what degree, right? There's no way that it's a seamless transition to go away from someone as good as him, and as like the leadership that he showed, the knowledge of the defense, and like they're also changing defensive coordinators, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That part of it is, I'm very interested to kind of see, where that shows itself, the loss of Xavier Watts. You talked about, there's scuttlebutt about Gerby Lambert being the right guard. I mean, that's obviously super intriguing, right? Like, yes. He's a highly rated prospect. He's enormous. It's funny how when we drop intel, like, oh, we heard Gerby Lambert might be the right guard. Like, no one gets mad about that. No one's like,
nope.
And if that ends up not happening, like, they're not going to spam.
People are going to be bummed.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. All right, and look, I told you about it yesterday, so you can't get upset. I didn't I didn't spring this on you. Let's get a season prediction.
So just regular season, right?
Yeah. You don't have to.
So I'm in the 10-2 camp. However, I cannot tell you what the 2 will be. And I think once I could see myself getting sucked into a game by game, just actually predicting Notre Dame to win every game.
For sure.
Even though I think they're
that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, the most logical thing is they split the first 2 games and then there's one along the way where it's just like annoying. Maybe they win it, maybe they don't. But I think I'm 10-2, and then especially now that it's Carr, I kind of said this earlier, like, that makes me a lot more interested in what December and January could be for this team. And 10-2, you're cruising into the playoff the way that the schedule is set up. So 10-2 CFP team. Are they hosting? Maybe, hopefully, but that's sort of. Last year I thought 11-1. It definitely wasn't the one that I thought, but like this year I feel like 10-2 is the most logical year-end record for them.
You think that's like a kind of a quarterback tax?
Yeah. I mean, I also look like Miami is good. Like, it's a hard place to play. I think Mike Elko is an awesome head coach. He's a hard guy to beat. Especially he's going to have a way better handle on his roster this year than last year, even for all the personnel that they lost up front. So, yeah, I just feel like those 2 first games out of the gate are really tough. You split them, you're in good shape, and then maybe. Human nature gets you at some point along the way. It's, as good as last season felt, there was still a Northern Illinois moment. We talked about Marshall already. Like, Stanford in 22 was just awful. Right. That there's a game. It's just because it's college football, it's kids. Human nature. Like, there's a game like that. It's always sort of around the corner when you least expect it. But man, I just think this roster is. I don't remember too many teams I've covered that seem to have no holes or this few holes in what they've got. It's just that at quarterback, you're like, I got to see it. I got to see you go out to Hard Rock Stadium and like handle it. Because I've seen Notre Dame quarterbacks not handle it before. But if he goes out there and handles it, then like, man, then if I come on the show again, I'll be like, yeah, 10-2. That's probably understating things.
Yeah, I think if you look across college football, going on the road has just been difficult. It's across teams, it's across kind of everything, right? Like Penn State goes to not a great USC and wins in overtime, and that's a big win. USC, look at all their terrible losses, like they're all on the road. USC
Notre Dame was on the ropes at USC last year.
I mean, it was definitely closer than by score. I mean, look at USC's on the 20, a chance to tie the game late in the fourth quarter. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to win on the road in college football now with like the portal and everything, and teams can kind of generate they can fill a lot of holes really quickly. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Last year I picked 11-1. And the one loss I picked was to Stanford. And the reason for that, the logic was good. I picked the wrong team. The logic was good, Pete. I said Notre Dame will lose a game that doesn't have their attention.
Okay. All right.
And that's exactly what happened.
Happened.
After they lost to NIU, I said, okay, they're not going to lose to Stanford now because now every game has their attention.
Yes.
And it's hard this year because I don't really see a game like that where
NC State is the
NC
one
State is kind of lurking.
Like it falls into weird spots right before USC. Like you may be riding really high after maybe you win both games to start. Arkansas, it's like you said, winning on the road is tricky. Boise State is like a heck of a brand name for a team that's not in a power conference. NC State, I think, is the one where maybe that doesn't have your attention enough if you're Notre Dame. And couldn't we all imagine there's 5 minutes to go in the game. Notre Dame's up 21-17 on NC State. And you're just like, it could be an excruciating watch based on where it falls in the calendar.
Yeah. I'm going to pick 11-1. And I think the one will be like another goofball game, like we've seen the last couple of years.
So you think a 2-0 start then?
Yes.
Okay.
I think if Notre Dame is to lose games that really have their really, really have their attention, first of all, losing at home to A&M, I just think it's going to be very hard for Notre Dame to lose at home to A&M. I think A&M's good. First of all, I also think USC is pretty good. I think they're going to be. I think USC and Texas A&M are going to be the same kind of team. And I think it's hard for me to pick against Notre Dame when I think they're healthy. If they're going into, because I'm, knock on wood, I think Notre Dame's going to be healthy going in Miami. I think it's going to be hard for Miami to beat them. I think if it's going to be a big game like that, there has to be some sort of injury for me to kind of change my mind. But we'll see, right? I mean, obviously there's, there's always room to change your mind on these things. Pete, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming in. This was a great conversation. It was great fun. It's finally you're a friend of the pod now. So that's
Thanks,
wonderful.
Greg. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I will see you in South Bend against Texas A&M. I will be out for that game. So that will be very fun. We'll catch you on The Athletic. Where else can we see you, Pete?
There, and we've got the podcast, The Independent, that I do with Matt Fortuna, and certainly Twitter is a fun place to interact as well. You catch everyone on the right day there. So
it's a fun place.
And certainly the youth soccer fields. You can catch me out on those two starting this weekend.
Yeah. So we'll be chatting about that very soon. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please hit that like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. We'll be back on Monday with Power Hour, and then Tuesday with Hit and Hustle as we enter into game week. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.